Welcome to Disciple Dojo. In this episode, we're going to take a look at a study Bible that someone sent me and asked my thoughts on, and that is the Fire Bible in the New Living Translation. Now, this review is going to be a lot shorter than most of our other reviews, and the reason is because, honestly, I've already reviewed this material. The Fire Bible is the exact same material in the King James Version Life in the Spirit Bible. So I'm going to link the review to that Bible down below in the video description. That will have all of my theological observations, whether I would or wouldn't recommend it, all that kind of stuff. See that for the content of this one. What I'm going to do is just show this to you, flip through it, let you see what it looks like, and then you can decide if this is a Bible that would interest you or not. So as we jump in, if you appreciate these type of in-depth study Bible reviews, best way you can show that appreciation is by liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing Disciple Dojo videos. Really helps us out as a channel. All right, let's jump in and look at the Fire Bible. So it comes in this slipcase, which I will now remove, which is not the easiest to remove. There we go. And this is a leather-ish binding. It's actually a very nice, it looks really cool. This is a cool, well-made cover, prominent fire design. It has sadly only one bookmark. Good study Bible should have at least two. And this edition has these gilded page edges. I don't know what other, you can see the nice shine there. I don't know what other edition this comes in. Like I said, a viewer sent it to me. I'm just reviewing what you're seeing right here. So this is, like I said, this is a nice edition. It's got this kind of leathery looking interior. Glossy presentation page. Now the pages are really thin. You can see a good bit of ghosting, so keep that in mind. Same editors as the Life in the Spirit Study Bible. This edition was published in 2021. Table of contents, all of the articles, all of the maps and the charts. Then they have the How to Know God. Again, we've covered all this in the other video, so I'm not going to go back and rehash it. The author's preface, so Donald Stamps, talking about how he put together what became the Life in the Spirit Bible, and then now is the Fire Bible. And at one point it was even called the Full Life Study Bible. So if you ever see the Full Life Study Bible, that's also the same thing. This Bible has had a couple of brandings over the years. Then there's How to Use the Fire Bible. It has the same list of the theme finders, those sort of how you can trace a topic through, kind of Thompson chain reference light. All of this is the same as the Life in the Spirit Bible. Then there is a note about this translation. So this is not in the King James. This is in the New Living Translation. So there's a note to readers about that. Then there's the introduction to the NLT. And then one of the things I love about the NLT is they include their translation team at the end of their introduction. So you know who was responsible for the translation. And whether or not you like a more thought-for-thought version like the NLT, or you prefer a more formal, word for word, like maybe the King James or New King James, New American Standard, whatever your preference is, the people who put together the NLT, these are solid evangelical scholars. The senior translator is Daniel Block. Daniel Block is an Old Testament scholar, world-renowned, brilliant Old Testament scholar. And you have people like Bill Arnold, William Van Gemeren, not ever sure how to say his name, Tremper Longman, Gary Burge, D.A. Carson, John Oswalt, Joyce Baldwin, Andrew Hill, Craig Blomberg, Donald Hagner, Grant Osborne, Darrell Bock, Scott McKnight, Doug Moo, Moises Silva, Peter Davids, William Lane, Greg Beale, Robert Mounts, and then F.F. Bruce and Kenneth Taylor, who produced the original Living Bible, were reviewers of it. So all that to say, the NLT is a fine translation. It's just not a literal translation. It is more thought for thought. So know that going in, but for what it is, it's excellent. Then just like the Life in the Spirit Study Bible, you come to the Old Testament, Genesis, it starts with the same outline. It gives the same information in the book introductions, the same reading plan, and a spot to write notes. Everything's the same. It just looks different. This is two colored, so you can see the headings are in red. The layout is the same. Double column, center cross references. The only difference, two colors on the page. This is the New Living Translation, which does not make every verse its own paragraph. So it's laid out in paragraphs. You have the poetry sections laid out in poetry, but since it's double column, they kind of have to squeeze the poetry a little bit. So it doesn't always preserve the layout of Hebrew poetry, which is one of the reasons I don't like double column. I like a single column Bible, because usually it will display the text in a way that aligns with the syntax of the original language, especially in poetry sections. You can see the little theme finders here. They are on the margins in red. And again, those lead you through the different sections. So it'll have the symbol here. This is the musical note. I can't remember what the musical note, what is that? The musical note is passages having to do with praise. So here, Psalm 34, there's a little musical note, and it gives you a bracket. It goes from verse 1 to verse 3, and then it gives you the next link in the chain. In this case, Psalm 92, 1 through 4. So you'd read these three verses. They're about praise, and then is a similar verse having to do with praise in Psalm 92, 1 through 4. So you flip there, and you see Psalm 92, verse 1, there's the little praise symbol, 1 through 4. And then the next one it points you to is Psalm 100. And so Psalm 100, you see there's the little praise symbol, and then the whole psalm. And it points you to Psalm 113. Now, all of Psalms is praise, so I'm not exactly sure why they're choosing these verses from these Psalms, but there you go. There are essays throughout, just the same content as the Life in the Spirit Study Bible. Here's one about caring for the poor and disadvantaged in the book of Amos. When you come to the end of the Old Testament, after Malachi, there's a section from Malachi to Christ, so it's just the timeline, the events leading up between the Old Testament and the New Testament. This is not a version that includes the Apocrypha, so you just jump right to the New Testament and right into Matthew. This is a red letter edition, so the words of Jesus are in red. There are a few maps, same maps that were in the Life in the Spirit Bible. And then one thing I did notice, I don't think this was in the other one, it might have been, and I just missed it. After Jude, there's a section called The Last Days of History. Now, if you remember our review of the Life in the Spirit Study Bible, it is entirely dispensational premillennial. It's Pentecostal in its theology. It's teetotaling, total abstinence. It teaches that Christians are to abstain from all alcohol, not just in moderation. It's non-Calvinistic. It holds to what would be called the corporate view on the Arminian side of the Calvin-Arminian debate. So all of that stuff we said in the first review, but then at the end, you can really see the dispensational premillennialism here because it has this multi-page outline sort of walking you through the end times passages. And this says copyright 1992, Life Publishers International. That's who published this Bible, which tells me that this was added and wasn't in the earlier editions. But Last Days of History, so it has the event, the description, and then the biblical references. Last Days of Preparation, the rapture. It has all of these verses that it says are about the rapture. Spoiler alert, I don't think any of them are actually about the rapture, but if you want to know what they think is about the rapture, they're all listed here. All of these verses that they say are about the tribulation, then the great tribulation. They distinguish those two things. More on the great tribulation, then the Antichrist. Then we come to Christ's glorious appearing from heaven to judge and wage war. Then we come to the millennium, because in premillennialism, Jesus returns the millennium. Then there's the final judgment. And then after the final judgment, the new heavens and the new earth. So this is the entire, Schofield, Darby, Hal Lindsey, Tim LaHaye, David Jeremiah, John MacArthur, all the rapture left behind, all of that, it presents it here. This lays out all the passages. So this is actually useful if you want to understand where does premillennial dispensationalism come from. It's a very new view in church history. No one really taught it, at least in any systematized way, before the 1820s, 1830s, depending on which source that you want to date it to, whether Edward Irving or John Nelson Darby. Regardless, it's very new in the history of the church. So this presents it, and you can go through and look at the references yourself and see. And then after that, you come to Revelation. Everything is exactly the same as the Life in the Spirit Study Bible, including the material after Revelation, weights and measures, the subject index. And again, these are subjects that are dealt with in the notes. The theme finder index, so all of those red theme icons that you see in the margins, you can look them up and trace through each of the themes. You have reading plans, the whole Bible in a year. Then you have the same dictionary concordance, and it's pretty substantial. I want to say it's about 100 pages. Yeah, over 100 pages, dictionary concordance, and this is to the New Living Translation. So these are the actual words in the text of Scripture. Then you come to a glossary of terms. These are terms that are used both in the Bible and in the study material. So some of the terms that may seem a little theological, this is a helpful resource. You'd be surprised how many Bible readers don't know words that many lifelong Christians take for granted. When we use words like justification or the fall, we have a specific meaning that we're using, but people who are new or aren't lifelong Bible readers, they may not know what we mean. It may just nod along and pretend like they do. So this is a helpful feature in any study Bible. Then there's a section, Hebrew and Greek word studies. Now, it only gives the English transliteration of the Hebrew and Greek words. It doesn't actually show you the Hebrew or Greek text. But these are important words that don't always have a one-to-one translation in English, or they're just important words that are heavily theologically loaded, like this term ga'al, which means to redeem. That's a very important concept, both in the Hebrew Bible and then the New Testament equivalent of it, because redemption is one of the main images of salvation throughout both testaments. So this I like. This is a very good feature. This and the glossary, both of these, great job including those. And then they have it for Greek words as well. My only critique is it would have been nice if they actually used the Hebrew and the Greek words themselves instead of just transliterating it. But I get it. It takes a little more work to incorporate Hebrew and Greek font, especially since Hebrew is right to left, and most readers aren't going to be able to read it anyway. If they can read Hebrew and Greek, they probably don't need these type of word studies in the back of their Bible. I get it. I can understand. It's not a severe criticism. Then we come to the maps, and the maps are different than the maps in the Life in the Spirit Study Bible. These are not the same maps that were in the other one. The color scheme is simpler, the layout, it doesn't give the 3D topography of the land, but it does include the land of Israel itself, and then the wider ancient Near East. Then it has a couple of reconstructions, Solomon's Temple, Jerusalem at the time of David and Solomon, and Jerusalem at the time of Hezekiah, Jerusalem at the time of Nehemiah, then the Roman Empire, and then reconstruction of the temple at the time of Jesus. And it ends with New Testament focused maps. And then lastly, a physical topography map of the Holy Land with a cross section so you can see the elevation as you move across the different areas of the Holy Land. And that's it. So that is the Fire Bible, New Living Translation. My thoughts on this are almost exactly the same as my thoughts at the end of the Life in the Spirit KJV Study Bible. The only difference is I would prefer this over the King James. I think if I had to pick one of the two, I'd pick this one because I think the New Living Translation does a better job translating into the English most people speak than the King James Version. So I'd choose it for that reason alone. The layout in this is a little nicer. The two colors is nice. The maps I think the maps in the other version were a little better, but this doesn't really have that kind of cheesy 90s Christian aesthetic to it. It's a little bit nicer. Unfortunately, you're still just getting a narrow sliver of a particular form of dispensational, premillennial, Pentecostal, teetotaling theology. So for that reason, no, I don't recommend this as your primary study Bible. If you want to know what people who hold to this view believe, this might be a helpful thing to have at hand. If you come from this tradition, maybe you are dispensational. I know we do have a lot of premillennial dispensational viewers. I appreciate you guys, even though I vehemently disagree with that view. I don't begrudge you or denigrate you for holding it, though I do try to persuade you to let go of it and come to something a little more orthodox. But regardless, this might be right up your alley. This might be the tradition from which you come. But the only reason that even if that's the case, I wouldn't recommend this is because you are then just getting that echo chamber. And a good study Bible, especially when it comes to passages where there are differing interpretations within evangelical Christianity even, I think a good study Bible should at least note those and be fair in providing the reader with the ability to understand the different views, even if it's just to a basic degree, and to understand why some people find them persuasive, even if the study Bible itself ends up leaning to a particular view. This does not do a good job of doing that. But let's be honest, a lot. In fact, most study Bibles, I reviewed over 100 study Bibles here on the channel. Most of them don't do a good job at doing that, which is why the ones that do always stick out to me so strongly. So those are my thoughts. No, I wouldn't recommend the Fire Bible for the exact same reasons I would not recommend the Life in the Spirit Bible. Thanks to the viewer that sent this to me. I hope it was helpful for those of you that are wondering what it looks like, what's in it. There you go. Now you have a good idea of it. Again, I'm going to say it one more time because this is YouTube. People skip around. They don't always follow a video all the way through. If you want to see a longer review of the material in this, where we look at the theology, we look at their take on the Calvinist passages, the women in ministry passages, the passages having to do with drinking, the passages having to do with end times, with Genesis and creation and science. We get into all that in the review of the Life in the Spirit Study Bible. So I'm not going to do all that again because it's literally exactly the same content. So go check that video out. I will link it right below. Tap on the title of this video. Tap on the description. You can find it easily from there. And while you're there, check out the other videos we have in this playlist here on our Study Bible Reviews and Stuff playlist. We've reviewed, like I said, over 100 study Bibles. So if you're wondering about a particular study Bible out there on the market, there's a good chance I've reviewed it. Unless it's by an individual celebrity preacher, those I tend to not review, especially if they're still alive. I just try to actively steer people away from those. So that's why I have never reviewed the Charles Stanley Bible, the David Jeremiah Bible, the John MacArthur Bible. They're just other things I'd rather give more attention to than celebrity preacher Bibles. But most of the other ones out there, I've reviewed here on the channel. So take a look in that playlist if you want to see my thoughts on those as well. That'll do for now. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more here at Disciple Dojo. And in the meantime, as always, keep training.